think in Kingel, we don't actually do a lot of pitches. I think a lot of the growth of the business has come through organic growth. I run a creative agency based in Birmingham. What we really specialise in doing is helping clients find that one thing that makes them stand out. So that one little insight or that one little hook that they can then talk about, and we can help them creatively project. Being open to and listening to that criticism is the best, for me, the best form of growth. You can make anything exciting if you find that one thing that people are going to be interested in. We believed in it so much that we felt we should just put all our eggs in one basket. The business has not been created to make loads of money, and for the directors to make loads of money, and for me to make loads of money. Stress is something that can be a good thing if it's harnessed in the right way. Trust, I think, is for me is a massive part of how I manage the business and who I want in the business.
But for you, how do you generate that lead in the first place?
I think it's a good question. I think for me, it's almost like how we.
Hello and welcome to Founder Stories, the podcast for small business owners. I'm your host, Simon Kalu, and I created this show not only to motivate and inspire, but to give you actionable strategies to take back into your business, shortcutting your route to success. Each week, I'll sit down with real and relatable business owners, uncovering how they've created a business that gives them freedom, creates impact, and makes money. So let's get started. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Founder Stories. You know, the point of this podcast is not to try and be the same as Diary of a CEO and all these other great podcasts, but to create something that entrepreneurs and business owners who have small businesses can relate to, be inspired by, and take, practical steps from each podcast to go back to their business. So today, joining me is Kingsley Peters. He is the founder and creative managing director of Kingel, which is a creative agency in the Midlands. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining me. Let's get straight into it. Tell me what your business does now. Obviously, we'll reverse back and go through your story, but for a bit of context and a bit of motivation for people and why they should listen, because you have achieved great levels of success. I was spying on all the stuff you've done yesterday.
Thank you.
Some of the clients that you work with and some of the case studies, and the quality of the work is incredible. Tell me what your business does now. Tell me some of the clients maybe that you've worked with, and then we can reverse back to how you got to this point.
Sure. So as you say, I run a creative agency based in Birmingham. We work with a whole wealth of clients of all sizes, but I think what we really specialise in doing is helping clients find that one thing that makes them stand out. So that one little insight or that one little hook that they can then talk about, and we can help them creatively project. So I'll give you an example. We work a lot with a company called Vaillant. So Vaillant are a heating manufacturer. They manufacture products like heat pumps and boilers and controls, thermostats, that sort of.
I remember them well, because my first flat that I ever purchased in South London, and I had to change the boiler, I went for a Vaillant boiler because my dad told me, these are the ones to get. These are reliable.
Yeah, they really are. I mean, they're German manufactured. You know, I'm not just saying this. I've been out to their manufacturing plant in Germany, seen the R&D. They put a lot of effort into the production of those boilers. So the challenge that Vaillant came to us with was to relaunch essentially their flagship boiler. So I think our process really in any creative task is about really digging into and understanding, as I say, what that one thing is that makes that product different. So the product they wanted to launch was called the Ecotech Plus. It's their flagship boiler. It was, they had an original version of it. It was really popular. It may have been the one that was in your flat. But they invested a lot of time and money in enhancing it and making it much better.
Okay.
So they kind of came to us and said, look, we've got this new Ecotech Plus. We want to kind of launch it to the world, mainly in the UK, but obviously to the UK. We need a really creative idea. So after playing with lots of kind of concepts, lots of ideas, we latched onto this idea that the boiler had almost been fine-tuned and enhanced, almost like you'd take a piece of music. So for example, you might take a remastered piece of music. You have to really understand what's great about that piece of music to remaster it. So we came up with this idea of the original remastered, because the boiler itself had only had these kind of fine-tuned things change, they'd adjusted the placements of certain things within the boiler, fine-tuned certain technical elements, but it had a massive impact on the output of that boiler. So the creative idea we landed on, as I say, was the original remastered. And it allowed us to essentially kind of take that product and package it in a way that was really interesting. Boilers are great. I wouldn't say, they're the sexiest of products, but I think actually where we get a kick is taking some of these products that are probably, run of the mill, everyday, utility based products and making them really exciting. So we did this full launch around this remastered product. Creating all these CGIs, using language that was all about kind of enhanced and fine-tuned and amplified.
So you're not losing all of that brand value and product trust that they've already built up as well, right?
Definitely. And I think continuing that message as well, a creative campaign needs to first and foremost grab the attention of its audience. You've got to grab them and make them pay, grab their attention so they're interested. But I think also when you're communicating over lots of different channels, so we were doing an event, we did CGI, we did animation, we did film, we did video, we did social, we did print, everything. You've got to have a consistent message because that ultimately is where you're then hammering home that one key point. So, long story short, we did this full launch, went down to the Science Museum, launched the product. And the idea, again, allowed us to do some really interesting things. So at the actual launch itself, we had a digital orchestra. So they were, kind of entertaining the attendees. We remastered the food, that idea, that one insight went across everything. And that's essentially what we specialize in. I suppose I get a real kick out of understanding a product, finding that one thing, and then coming up with loads of creative ideas that, make me excited about that product. It can be an insurance thing. It can be a boiler, as I say. It can be anything. I think you can make anything exciting if you find that one thing that people are going to be interested in.
You genuinely believe in it, right? So
definitely.
It sounds like, and something, I didn't learn it this week, but what came to me this week in a course that I'm doing is that you have to get to the point where either for yourself or for your clients, you truly believe in the product, the price point, the offer. And when it comes to selling or marketing that product, it's easy.
Definitely.
Because you believe it and it comes through. If you create some campaign that you think will go down well, but you don't and your team don't genuinely believe in it, it probably won't work.
Definitely. And I think for me, gut instinct is a major part of how I do business and how I judge ideas. Because ultimately, we may have a brief where we've got lots and lots of ideas on the table. And I think you can, I suppose it's like any business decision, you can think about it with your mind and, technically that's probably right. And, we think the client will buy that. But actually that idea over there, that's the one that makes me excited. That's the one that when I'm getting in the car and driving home or I'm in the shower, the one I remember. And learning to listen to that gut instinct and having, I suppose, the strength to promote that and push that and try and get the client to buy that is a massive part of my business.
Is this like, this wasn't in my notes and it wasn't in my thought process, but you just reminded me of the program Mad Men, which I'm sure you've watched. Is the scenario that, you've got this client and they've come to you, and then you have to go and pitch those ideas. And do you just go with that one idea, the original remastered, or do you have to present 3 or 4, but you really want them to pick the one that you love?
So that's a really great question, and I think actually in our industry, a common challenge and question. So with the original remastered, we hung all of it on that one idea.
Okay.
We didn't go in with multiple ideas.
Yeah.
We made the decision that it was do or die on that one. We believed in it so much that we felt we should just put all our eggs in one basket.
And that shows the client how much belief you have in it as well.
Yeah.
And at that point, has that client committed to the scale of the creative project with you? Or could they turn around and say, I don't like it, we'll pay you for the work up to this point, but we're going to go in a different direction? So right now in 2023, is it like Mad Men where you're still at that point pitching to get the rest of the work, and then you'll agree the scope and the fee, which might increase over time if they decide, well, actually we'd like this and we'd like this and we'd like this? Or at that point, have you already won the work?
So it varies. I think in Kingel, we don't actually do a lot of pitches. I think a lot of the growth of the business has come through organic growth, has come through, we have done pitches, and I think obviously the Vaillant one was a pitch. We've done some pitches for NFU Mutual. We have, but generally what we found is that we will do a pitch. If we've won the pitch, we then focus on just growing ourselves within that business. I'm a real strong believer that I'd rather invest all my time and efforts in understanding the client's challenge and seeing if they have any other areas where we can add value and we can help, instead of hemorrhaging time and money on going after new clients, just getting them in the door, landing
build
them,
relationships.
Exactly. So going back to your kind of question, the 3 ideas versus the 1 idea, I think both still happen. I think sometimes we feel that actually we've got 2 or 3 good ideas and we feel we want to share a breadth of concepts. Sometimes we do just go, we believe this is it, and you either take it or you don't. I think unpaid pitches is still a big thing in our industry. It's still a common thing. We have done paid pitches. There have been times when we've done paid pitches, and I think actually I'm a strong believer, especially with smaller businesses, that I think those paid pitches should really be the standard, because ultimately, as a team, it takes a lot of time and resource. So we're not like the big Saatchi & McCann's. I think they have a lot of manpower. They have a lot of people.
Yeah, they'll have a department just for creating unpaid pitches, right? Which comes into their overhead. So they're just sitting there doing it all the time. Exactly,
and they can afford to lose that margin of of time and those people. Smaller businesses, when we decide to pitch, it's all or nothing for us. We have to go all in, and we have to find ways of kind of managing the work we have on and making sure that doesn't suffer, and deciding to go in with and put forward for our ideas. So the general process would be that if you are pitching for free, we then pitch all the ideas. Say with Vaillant, they love the idea. We then cost up, obviously, what that campaign would be. Usually they would give us a kind of a ballpark cost for what budget they want to spend over the year. And a part of the pitch will be how we will spend that. How would we invest that in the time? But 9 times out of 10, you pitch an idea. You'd then have creative development time quoted to develop that further. Because it's never going to be right first time. They know their business much better than we do. We're coming at it from an exterior perspective, external perspective. So you have to try and build that time into the further development. But if it's if it's a large campaign and there's a big budget, it's worth the investment.
And how do you win a client like Vaillant? Why don't they just go to a big branded agency that's got 300 staff? How have you won that client? I think that's something that people will be so interested to hear. If you're starting out and you're a freelancer, I guess a lot of the journey of people is they'll work at a big agency like Mother or someone, if they're still in existence now. They used to be a big agency when we had our accountancy firm in London. you build up some relationships, you leave, you freelance on your own. You can't take those clients with you, but after a certain period of time, then you can start doing work for those clients. You've got those relationships. But typically where I've seen agency owners then get stuck is they can't develop new relationships. And so they're stuck with those 4 or 5 clients. And then eventually those will dwindle and they'll go somewhere else and they've got no business because they have no lead generation process. So how do you win a client like Vaillant?
I think that's a really good point. I think they're with the bigger agencies, obviously they have a brand themselves. Like you're saying, Mother, Saatchi, and
people
Saatchi.
come to them.
People know them.
Yeah.
But in reality, obviously, I've worked at those big agencies. That's where I suppose I cut my teeth in some of the big agencies.
Okay.
Ultimately, at the end of the day, all the big agency is a group of creative individuals, an account manager, creative director, art director, copywriter, designer. They're just the same as a business that's our size, 8 to 10 people.
Yeah.
So I think actually what you get, and this is, I suppose, how we would position ourselves, is that we are not a 1-2-man band. We're not the freelance, set up.
Yeah.
We're not the huge agency.
Yeah.
We sit smack bang in the middle.
Oh, I believe you're in a sweet spot. Just like Growth Factor, I've now got to the point where I'm saying to people, you can't get better than Growth Factor. Because if you go to a KPMG, they don't care about you.
That's exactly it.
If you go to an accountant that has a couple of staff, they'll take you on and things will be good, but they want to scale their own business. So you have to go through their growing pains with them. If you go for someone in between who has, I guess, between 5, 6, 7 and 20 to 30 staff, that's a perfect sweet spot because you're going to get the personal service, but the person you go in that's doing the work with you will stay with you as the business grows because you've already created these pods within your business. And to me, it's perfect, right? So I get that. But then how does a business... So I can understand how, say, Growth Factor can go and win a big client. I mean, we don't target big clients, but if we wanted to, because we, say, form a partnership with Tony Robbins, big people go to his events that businesses turning over 50, 100, 150 million. If we had the capability to serve them, we could generate those leads and convert them. We don't have that capability, so we have to say sorry and recommend them to someone else, right? But for you, how do you generate that lead in the first place?
I think it's a good question. I think for me, it's almost like how we would treat any campaign. It's about raising your profile in as many possible ways as you can. And
then they'll find you. So they have people within the Vaillant marketing team that are looking on LinkedIn, looking for case studies, looking at online content, and they'll reach out to you.
Yeah, so it can't, I suppose for us, it comes in different ways. We have different approaches. So we try and raise our business through PR. So that's essentially having press releases. If we've done a new campaign, we will try and be in the press. Yeah. From an RFP perspective, so people approaching us, we do have an outreach program where there is an element where you have to kind of cold approach businesses.
Yeah, just to start relationships.
Exactly, right? And then purely from a creative perspective, so entering awards and from, as you were saying, kind of social content. I have my own Instagram channel. Some of my team have their Instagram channels. I think, we produce content across LinkedIn. I think a big thing for me, and one of the reasons that I wanted to talk to you and, be involved in the podcast was because I think actually, it's really important to talk about what you believe in and your values. And I think a lot of the content that you talk about around health and mindset and well-being are a major part of my focus for the business too. Yeah. I think things like, as well for me, one of our art directors, Rosie, she's a brilliant illustrator. So outside of our agency, she does a lot of illustration. Yeah. And I'm really keen to help encourage that, because just going back to what you're saying about raising our profile, one, it's great for her. First and foremost, she's really passionate about it. She's great at it. Yeah. It's good for her development. I think it's great for her profile, but equally it's good for the business's profile. I think if she's doing something she's enjoys, she's passionate about it, she's talking about it, and people know that she's working at Kingel.
Yeah.
It's a win-win all round.
Yeah.
So I think for me,
you're not trying to create these individual robots. You're letting people come into the team, keep consistent with their own passions and have their own personalities.
Definitely. And I think, that for me is, I'll come on to talk about how I think almost running a freelance collective in the early days has informed that thinking. But just going back to your point about profile raising, I think having those relationships and having people that believe in the Kingel brand and are passionate about what they do and are passionate, energetic people, that for me is the very best. I think if there was one thing that has helped our business grow, it has been creative energy. It's been clients coming to us, or us even, a lot of the time us going to the clients to try and understand what their challenge is and just talking to them and then going away and coming up with ideas, or just while we're talking to them, have you thought of this? Have you tried this? Have you tried this? That sort of energy and want to be creative for them, for me has always been the thing that actually has grown the business, because I think people are attracted to that. I think the cold calling or the email outreach, the PR, the social, that's all great. And I think that's profile raising. But for me, it's ultimately you care about what they care about. And if you can help them and you genuinely are interested, that's where the growth comes, I think.
And I think it's not a case of you then being super selective with who you take on. It actually sounds like your philosophy is you can get passionate and excited about anything if the standard and values of that company align with yours. So
definitely,
you're not promoting nuclear warheads or whatever it might be.
No.
That being said, any product that might be traditionally boring, you almost see it as a challenge to make it exciting and make people understand why there's value in that.
Oh, definitely.
In that product. And also what I'm getting is you're hiring people that are confident, are capable. And so everything doesn't have to go through you. You trust your team to come up with these creative ideas, right?
Definitely. Trust, I think, is, for me, is a massive part of how I manage the business and who I want in the business.
And when you've got kids, you can't have it any other way. You can't be micromanaging everyone and working 100 hours a week.
Definitely not. And I suppose the trust, I've been in businesses and I've experienced environments where actually there isn't a lot of trust. And I think that can be challenging because I think that ultimately, if you trust people to do a good job, and you don't, like you were saying, you don't micromanage them, you're not overseeing them, you're not kind of, telling them what they should be doing. It gives me the space to do what I enjoy and know that if I ask them to do something, I might not speak to them for 2 or 3 days, but I know that after those 2 or 3 days, that what was needed will be done.
Or they'll have come back to you if they hit a roadblock.
Definitely.
And they'll have kept you aware of their progress and everything else, right? But that's about hiring a certain type of person who's probably more senior than your typical person would think they should hire when they're first scaling their business.
Definitely. I think we're at a point with the business now where we've got a senior kind of director level. So there's 4 of us at a director level. And I think for me, having that breadth of skill set at that level means that I can go off. I can turn my phone off for the morning.
You've got other people who can make decisions at that level. We will reverse back at some point, but this is super interesting. So the structure is you've got the 4 senior people, they're directors. Then you've got the creative output level below, and then, we can talk about individual structure. Did you give who's the founding? Are you the founder of the business?
Founder,
So when you bring in these directors, are you giving them equity in the business? How are you bringing them in and making them act like it's their business?
I think the situation for me is we started essentially with being a freelance collective, and it's grown from that position where ultimately we the directors are remunerated at
Yeah.
the end of each year for the health of the business.
Yeah.
We're very transparent with how the business has done.
Yeah.
So obviously not the nuances of all the detail, but the costs in the business, the profit in the business.
But they get out what they put in. So that's
Exactly.
how you're making them feel like owners, right? We don't need to go into the share structure and how you pay dividends and all of these things. But ultimately what you're saying is, they're not on a fixed income. They're directors. So however well the business does and they've contributed to that, there'll be a sharing process in that reward, right?
That's exactly it. And I think for me, that's always been really important.
Yeah.
I want, and we do it with the team as well. I think at the director level, obviously we all as a team have clear KPIs in our growth or our targets are attributed to a particular KPI.
Yeah.
And, but at the end of that year, our end of our financial year, if we've done really well, there's remuneration for that. And I think that for me, that's an important part of the business. But I think for me, the major driver I would like to think behind the director level is not purely monetary driven. I think it's very much about freedom. I think I created Kingel with the vision of having like-minded individuals that are able to do what they're really good at, to do what they enjoy, earn a good income from it, but also have a really good work-life balance. So I think for me, the business has not been created to make loads of money and for the directors to make loads of money and for me to make loads of money. I've never really been a money orientated person. I think because I'm a creative at heart, and I've come through that creativity, what I really get a kick off out of is good creative work and the process of creating. So I think to go on what it is that the senior team feel motivated by, I think it's knowing that we have a strong and healthy business that allows them the flexibility and the work-life balance that means that they're there for their kids. When
so
when
you're
needed.
all in a similar situation in terms of age, family. You share the same standards and values, right? You all want work-life balance.
That's exactly
to do
it.
good work and work hard, but have enough time to take your kids and go and watch them play cricket or watch them play football on the weekend.
That's
and
it.
not be working all Saturday on a deadline, right? If you're a director level, because you've built this team underneath who can do the work, you trust them as well. So each of the 4 directors, do they have a different area in the business that they're kind of responsible for?
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah,
So
that makes sense.
so
We'll get into that. Let's reverse back, right?
Okay.
And then I want to come back to that because I think what you've done is you've managed to break through this wall that I believe 90+% of creative agency owners cannot break through, which is, and I was speaking to one of my clients about this week, you've hired that first person, they're not good enough, you've got to fire them. You've tried to hire another person, they're not good enough, you've got to fire them. And you just get stuck in how do I transition from having good work, having great clients, but working 50, 60 hours a week, maybe you're turning over 100K, you've got some freelancers that help you, but how do you go into actually having a real business and bringing other people on? And I think you've done that in a really smart way, which I believe is the answer too. I have a business partner who takes care of all of the day-to-day for me. I'm more of the CEO, he's more of the COO, making sure that all the work is getting done, making sure that the client's are happy, making sure that, the team of senior accountants that we've got in, who we've hired at a more and more senior level, so they're self-sufficient anyway, but they're happy and they're all on their KPIs. And so you need that person, otherwise I'd have to do that job, right? And I think you've done that really smartly, and lots of people, they don't necessarily want to wait to hire until they can afford that senior person, and they're doing it in the wrong way. They're hiring too junior and they're having to just spend all their time managing those people. Tell me about what you did before Kingel. You were working at big agencies. What agencies did you work at, and how did you come up with that idea, that first time that you had that idea to start your own business?
Yeah, so I think I was working at an agency in central Birmingham. I was kind of managing their creative team, and I think I'd been there for three or 4 years. And I just got to the point where I wanted to just do it for myself. I think I just had that hunger to challenge myself and do something for myself. So I jumped ship and set up essentially as a freelancer. So freelance art director. I was working for agencies around.
And could you take any of your clients with you that you had relationships with?
No. I think
so.
It's a hard place to be.
These are the practical things that people think of. So you've jumped. You've got no clients, no income. Did you save money in order to make that jump?
Yeah. So I probably decided about a year and a half before I left that I wanted to do something for myself.
And how old are you at this point?
Well, I'm 42 now, and that was 8 years ago. So yeah, kind of 32, 33.
Okay. So you've got a kid at this point.
So
you've got responsibilities.
Yes.
Right?
So at that point, I have a son who's probably 6 or 7.
Do you think that motivated you to do your own thing?
It was the birth of probably my second son that really motivated me, because I think I got to the point where he was born. He was very young, and I was still doing the same thing. So I was still leaving the house at 7:30 and getting back at 7 every day. And I think I just got to the point where I just felt that there was more, and I could do more, and I wanted a different balance. I wanted a different work-life balance.
Yeah.
So I kind of made the decision alongside my wife, that I would start working for myself.
Yeah.
As you say, I couldn't just jump. I had a mortgage to pay.
And what does your wife do?
So she,
can she support you at this point?
Yes, and that was a really big. That was a really big.
Yeah,
big
which
part
is the same with me. My wife's retired now, but she was a dentist, so she was able to support me when I started the business.
Yeah,
if I needed it.
And I think that was a really big part of jumping ship, was that we knew that if worse comes to worse, her salary would support us.
Yeah.
And I think that's a hard thing to feel. I think sometimes I don't ever want to feel like I'm being carried.
Yeah.
But for me, marriage is about teamwork.
Yeah, it's a partnership.
It's a partnership, exactly.
Yeah, 100%.
And we were in it together. So through her support, I was able to say, okay, I've saved a chunk of money now. I saved enough money that I felt that if I didn't get any work for 6 to 8 months, I could pay the mortgage. I could pay my way in the house.
Yeah.
But I was fortunate in that it didn't come to that. I didn't really end up using any of it.
Yeah.
What I did over that period of like the last year was kind of talk to other people outside of the business. Kind of talk to other agencies about, would they need a freelancer in the future? Just I suppose build my portfolio, talk to people.
Yeah.
I was working really hard at the time, so I wasn't really doing too much, but I was, laying the ground for
building
that.
a network. Yeah,
exactly. So when I jumped ship, I just approached all of my mutual kind of contacts, people that I knew were still working in agencies, and said, are you looking for freelance work? And I was fortunate in that, I got freelance from people I know down in London, people in Leicester.
So you weren't going
all over
direct
the
to
place.
client at this point. You were freelancing, right? Yeah.
But I always knew that I wanted my own clients. I didn't know I wanted to create an agency.
Yeah.
Interestingly, I never really had that vision of creating an agency. I had the vision of having my own direct clients. And I think that the reason was because as a freelancer, you kind of come in, you do a certain job, and then you go.
Yeah.
And I was always much more interested in the full process. What is the client challenge? What are they dealing with? How is it then? What are the metrics on the outcome of it, and how can I make it a profitable job?
Yeah.
I loved that idea of not just doing the creative, but all of it.
Yeah, and building a relationship over time where you can transform that brand essentially.
Exactly, and being part of that transformation and being part of that brand's journey.
Yeah.
And feeling that the idea that I've had is making impact on their business.
And you can measure that, right? Like going back to the Vaillant case study, you can measure the impact of that launch versus when they launched it originally. Right?
Exactly.
And it would have been totally different.
Completely. And I think, we were doing a lot of freelance work, myself and my copy partner, and we won a pitch for NFU Mutual.
Okay. So at this point, it's not just you. You have someone that you're working with.
Yeah. So Nigel was my is a good friend of mine still. He was a freelancer too.
Okay.
So I set up. So we were freelancing separately. We would charge as kind of separates. We were a team. We were doing separate agency work.
Yeah.
But then after probably about a year and a half, I was like, I want to set up something formal. I want to create an agency.
Yeah.
So after fair amount of discussion, we decided that I would set the agency up. It would be my agency. I would found it, and Nigel would partner with me on it. But he had his own thing.
Yeah.
And we started. We had an RFP given to us, a request for proposal. Do you want to throw your hat in the ring for this? It was essentially like a report design. We want some concepts, we want some ideas, we want to make it more human. It's for NFU Mutual. And it came through a mutual contact, someone that I'd worked with in agency.
And that's the power of networking, right? Exactly. So using LinkedIn, but also talking to people and going to things to see people face to face.
Yeah.
And just because you never know where that's going to go.
No. And I remember her ringing me and saying, look, we've got this opportunity for a tender. We're putting it out to multiple agencies. Do you want to have a go? And I was like,
probably because she wants to support you.
Yeah.
What people don't realize, because they don't want to go out and they don't want to meet people and they don't want to put themselves in a vulnerable position to say, look, I've got this startup business. I'm really great at what I do, but I don't have a lot of clients right now. So if anything comes up, and here's some of the work I've done when I was previously working, and you think that I'd be good for it, please let me know.
Definitely.
But people don't want to put themselves out there for fear of failure. But I think you have to. And you have to say that thing to as many people as possible.
Exactly. And I think actually, the network is so important, because ultimately with any form of new business and any form of growth, the seeds that we're sowing now, through our approach, through our mindset, through our creativity, they may not grow for 2-3 years.
Yeah.
But actually, I think if you see every interaction you have with every individual as a representation of something good and your passion, people remember that. And like you say, at the end of the day, people buy from people.
Yeah.
I think the situation with this individual, a lady called Laura, who I'm still in contact with, she moved on from the business, but she, I remember her saying to me, like, do you want to kind of put some ideas in?
Yeah.
And it was like it was like, definitely, there was no, there was no question of it. Yeah. There was also that, are we able to do this? We're up against other agencies. Can we do this? But I was like, I think that kind of, that complex of, you're not good enough or you'll never do it. I think everybody struggles with, especially in the early years. But I knew that we had a really great creative product and that we could do the job.
Yeah.
So we won the pitch, and we've been working with NFU Mutual now for nearly 7 years since that one pitch. And it's
that in itself is such a testament. I mean, you can have case studies, but I'm creating some case studies for our clients now as well. And some of the clients we've had, I remember one creative agency that we've got as a client, PS London, they're called. They have been with us for 12 years. I remember when I first started the business, getting up at 6 a.m. to go to BNI meetings to stand up and do a 60-second pitch. And I probably went for 6 months until eventually Robert, who's one of the founding partners, said to me, let's go and have a chat. And like you said, you have to stand up and do that 60-second pitch for 6 months, just letting them know what you do and building trust. And then when they have a need, they will come to you. But I think if you're looking at working with people, look at their case studies, because if they're doing a good job, they will have retained their clients for a long, long time.
Certainly.
It's I don't think there's any better way to show that you are a good business and you're doing a good job. The fact that you've held an internationally renowned brand for 7 or 8 years,
And I think it comes back to as well, caring, like I'm a bit of a foodie, I love my food. So as a result, I'm interested in agriculture and I'm interested in, that kind of sector. And obviously NFU Mutual, as much as, their insurance products cover, commercial, their foundation came from, a national federation of, National Farmers Union Mutual.
Yeah.
They are in the agricultural sector, and I find that fascinating. You know, some of the sectors they go to, and the conferences, and some of the shows they go to. It's all about tractors and farmers, and talking about the soil, and I find that really interesting. So I find their product interesting. Yeah. So that makes me want to work with them, and I think we had a conversation. I went over to see them recently, and it was a bit of a kind of with some of their sort of senior management level, talking about how we've done and what we've done for them. And we're not perfect, no agency, no individual is perfect. We make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. But I think for me, a fundamental part of people trusting you is saying, okay, we didn't do that well. Yeah. So we're going to do this. Actually, I don't think we did that as well as we could.
Making it right.
Yeah, and making it right and focusing on it. I think the worst thing you can do is just go like that, I don't want to talk about it. Yeah. Being open and talking and listening to that criticism is the best, for me, the best form of growth. Yeah. You didn't do that very well. We weren't too keen on that.
And actually being unafraid to ask the client then at the end of the project, did we meet your expectations? Did we exceed them? If not, what do you think that could have been done better? That's the only way you're going to learn. So many businesses, it's incredible how many people I talk to that are 10 years plus in business and have never asked their clients, the service that we give you, do you actually get value from it? Or are you just not moving to someone else because you feel like it's too much hassle to move?
So a big part of our, I think, growth has been we did exactly that. So one of our agency director, Gareth, he joined the business about 2 years ago. And what he did is when he came in, he said, look, what we should do is create a feedback session, essentially where we go to all of our clients and we talk to them about what we're doing well for them, what we're not doing so well for them, and just talk to them. Yeah. And that was amazing, because I think what that did is it gave them a platform to say, we love you do it. We love this. This is what we love about your business. Yeah. We love that it's a family feel, that it's a big agency thinking, but you're agile, you turn things around quickly. But we feel that actually maybe you're not doing this, you're not doing this, you're not doing this. And as soon as we were able to hear that, and they felt we were listening, they wanted to talk to us about more stuff.
Yeah. So people fear that actually that conversation will open up in the client's mind the things you're not doing well and lead to a negative result. But I think that will almost never happen. Definitely. The fact that you're even just going and saying, I want the feedback so I can improve, that client will see as a positive thing.
And I think, that they see then that you are genuinely vested in helping them. Yeah. It's not just about getting the invoice in at the end of the month and making sure they're paying. I think it's because ultimately, I think when you work with the bigger businesses, it's not their money. It's not like you're working with a smaller kind of startup where it's their own investment. That's a different approach. Yeah. I think they obviously have their budgets and they have their responsibilities, but I think, what they're interested in is the job going well, because ultimately, it's their name that's, the work we do, it's their name that's being seen. Yeah. So I think having those open and honest conversations with people, for me, is just a massive part of making sure the business is healthy and that you're listening to the clients.
Yeah. Yeah, because it should be client-led, not I know best because I designed this product or service. And you as the client will either like it or go somewhere else. So how do you transition from you and Nigel? Who's your first hire that is maybe taking some of the workload off you?
So it was a really interesting journey, I think, and I'll tell this kind of story in that the first year, so when it was just me and Nigel working on the creative, I got to the end of the year and I thought, I've got a couple of brilliant campaigns. We did a launch for an app. We won, a couple of smaller businesses, doing loads of great work. I sat down with my wife and we looked at what the business had earned. Yeah. And I remember her saying to me very clearly, which was really hard to hear, looking at what you've earned and looking at the hours that you've worked this first year, you should have really gone and worked in a shop. Yeah. I was earning less than minimum wage for the hours that I was working.
Yeah, which is what we call average hourly rate as an accountant. So if you're listening to this and you've never calculated it, add up all the hours you worked last year. If you've got staff, you can add up the staff at various levels and divide it by the amount of revenue that they generated. and you'll be amazed how low it comes out.
It's scary. It's so scary.
Even with us, we have a target average hourly rate, and our actual we're probably creeping up to about 45% of the target now. So there's this notional target that you never get to, because if you hire good people, their tendency will also to do extra work for the client, even to try and sneak that extra work in without me knowing about it. But that's good because they're good people and they care about the client. But you have to temper that when they come on, right?
Exactly.
So your wife said your average hourly rate is £8.20 or something.
Exactly. I think it was even less than that.
Yeah.
I think it was horrendous. I could have made this up, with the years, but I feel like it was something like £3.23. It was so low.
And is that two lessons? One is, workflow and managing how much you're putting in, but also it's got to be an adaptation of pricing in there as well, right? More pricing confidence.
Exactly both. Yeah. So I think the first thing that I thought about was that what I was doing is we were charging for the creative. Yeah. So the client would come to us and say, look, we've got this video, we've got this brochure, or we've got this logo, or whatever, we've got this piece that needs doing. I would quote that up and say, here it is, here's your cost. They would say, great, we would start work on it. What I wasn't doing is adding any account management time to that.
Yeah.
Now, it sounds like such an obvious thing now, but actually when I'd come from obviously being just managing a creative department.
Yeah, you don't think about that.
I don't think about the sheer amount of time.
The work being done to create, not to manage the project.
Exactly.
Talk to the client, go through the revisions, all of these things.
And it's almost half, So the creative product might take us a week.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably not quite half, but it might be sort of 30% of that would then be account management. And I wasn't quoting for any of that time.
Yeah.
So immediately I've lost 30% of the job.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I wasn't doing the hours I was quoting for. So I was doing, again, probably double that. So if I was quoting for 2 days, I had in my head, this is about a reasonable figure. But because my standards were so high, the reality is I was probably doing 4 days on that job. So immediately I've stripped, this quote that I've created at 100% down to probably 50, 40% of the value it should be.
Yeah, which you're kind of lucky because it's you. So you're still receiving income. But if you had staff and you look at the typical profit margin in an agency being maybe 15 to 25%, the bigger you get, ideally we'd want, and if any service business that we work with, to be sort of 30 to 40%. But most of the bigger agencies that we see will be between 15 and 25%. You'd be making a loss if you had a staff doing that work.
Definitely. Well, as you say, it was just me and Nigel at that point. So we were just like, this is just not great.
You're just working hard and not earning that much. Yeah.
Exactly. So there were two things that I had to do that were very clear to me. One was the pricing structure was just too low. I need to be pricing it at a more competitive, because I was pricing, we were pretending we were an agency, acting like an agency, but we were using freelance fees. And when you look at the pricing structure for an agency, it's much higher than it is for a freelancer. That's because there's all this extra stuff that's going on that you need to charge for. But I didn't know that. And also I didn't know that I needed to be charging for the account management side of things. Yeah. So as soon as I shifted to that mindset, things started to change. Yeah. With that comes a real challenge of, if you have a client that's used to you charging them a certain amount
for a certain
thing, and you double it,
business,
you double it overnight, that's never going to land. That's never going to go.
Yeah.
So then you're faced with the challenge of, okay, well, how do you grow your existing clients to move to the pricing structure that you need, so that you've got space on the job and that you've got the ability to bring other people into that job? It's a really hard thing to deal with. So the first thing I did really was I brought in Amy. So Amy's now our client services director.
Okay.
So we operated from again, almost like a consultancy. So she was a consultant, Nigel was a consultant, I was a consultant, and we started operating like that.
Yeah.
But what she helped me do is build time and meat into the jobs for her time.
Yeah.
And increasing the pricing structure. So as soon as we did that, we then had jobs that were very profitable. So then I have space to employ a designer and bring a designer in. And as soon as I then have space to employ a designer, I then have space to be doing the new business, helping on the creative tenders.
because that's
Gives me
taking some of
space.
your time away.
Exactly.
And when you make that first decision to hire that designer, is that because you've either built up enough cash, like you did when you first started, to say, well, if I bring them on and I don't have quite enough work, I can still pay them for 6 months? Or can you see your, what we call a pipeline, so you can see your prediction of future work with enough confidence that you bring them on? Or is it a bit of both?
It's a little bit of both.
Because if you've got bigger clients and you know that client's happy, you know their budget is going to go up or down depending on how well that business is doing, which you can look at because most of them are publicly traded businesses, so you can see their share price and things like that. So you have an indication, okay, well, if their budget was 100K this year, they're doing really well, share price is up, they're probably going to have a 100K budget for us next year. We've surveyed them, they're happy. As much as you can without them committing, which they won't do years in advance, they'll probably spend the 100 with us again. And then you start building out this pipeline of projected work. And then as an agency, you can start to say, well, we can hire this person here and this person here and this person here. So it's probably, would you say it's easier for you because you work with bigger clients than someone that's an agency working with owner managed businesses where it's very difficult to predict future income?
Definitely. I think for us, again, this is why it comes back to relationships. I think, we try and talk to the businesses that we work with and say, look, what do you expect you will need next year? They can't always put a specific figure on it, but they'll give us an inclination of, we've got this campaign or we need to do this.
And are you positioning that like, it will help me make sure I've got the capacity to do the work for you?
Definitely. Well, we want to be in a healthy position so that, the businesses we're working for, that we have a team of people that we are able to pay all their salaries.
And that's a real skill, isn't it? Because if you look at the big agencies, which is probably where you've taken this from, they will have someone whose specific job it is to do business development and nurture that relationship and get that indication from the client so they can fill in their projected income for the year and look at staffing and look at the blend of freelance and full-time people. And you can just do the same if you're willing to put yourself on the line and say, are you happy? Are you going to work with us next year? If so, what's the scope look like?
Definitely. Because I think a lot of the work that we do is project-based. We do have retainer businesses. And, the retainer businesses obviously help because you're able to project.
Yeah.
But nothing is set in stone. Everything is at a level of risk. I think you may have a business where procurement decide that they need to take multiple agencies and put it out to tender because
or a new managing director comes in.
Exactly, change happens. So I think going back to your kind of question of how did we make that decision to employ the first designer? For me, I almost had enough capital, enough cash in the business that we knew we could cover that salary for 9 months. So if all work dropped, we could cover that first salary for 9 months. And that gave me a sense of security that I knew that would give me the space to then keep building that. And I try and do that, with every hire. I like to, I want cash. To know, that
in lots of agencies, they do not do that. I can tell you, they look at their pipeline, spend all their money on promotion and use the pipeline to do the hiring. I think in today's world, with the levels of risk and change that do happen, much better if you can build up cash reserves for that salary to include also 6 months worth of your regular overheads for your existing team and just run like this. But then that's probably because you and your fellow directors aren't materialistic and you're not trying to strip all the cash out to go on fancy holidays and buy expensive cars. I love the fact that you've got a Tesla like me through the business, 2% benefit in kind charge, brilliant car. And you get to the point now, if you're putting cars through the business and all of these, using all of your tax deductions, you don't actually need to take that much out of the business as dividends and salary because a lot of it can go through as, like, if the cars are going through, that's a big expense, right?
Definitely.
And you're not, and we spoke about this, your team now is hybrid. So you're recruiting the best people from around the UK, not necessarily expecting them to all be local to a Birmingham office and come in every day. I guess, does that line up with your philosophy of why you started the business in the first place, to give everyone good work-life balance and flexibility.
Yeah, that was why, as you say, why I set up Kingel. It was ultimately that I believed that you could do good work, you can be passionate about what you do, work hard, but have a good work-life balance.
How do you switch off though? Like, I was talking to my wife about this because I'm deep into building out online funnels now, because we've got to roughly 2 million sales just organically through referrals. But I want more consistency of lead generation now, so I can step away from that, because a lot of that relies on an individual's network. And so I get deep into something, like my kids, they are drawing at the moment. They'll do a drawing, you'll buy them this painting, they'll paint all day, then they'll wake themselves up early to go back down and continue painting.
That's brilliant.
And my wife will be like, these two are nutcases. Well, how do we stop this? I'm like, don't stop it, because this is good. It's a good indication that when they're adults, if they have a problem, they'll work on it until they find a solution. But my long-winded way of saying this is, it's at 5 o'clock, I find it very difficult to stop thinking about the design of my lead page and now switch on to I'm having a family dinner. Yeah. And I really struggle with that.
I think that for me is something that I've battled with a lot as well over the last few years. I think for me, work-life balance isn't necessarily about I just stop work then, because I think, like you say, when you're a business owner,
you can't stop thinking.
There's no way you can switch off from it. I mean, it's a slight side, but we do timesheets at work, and I kind of track the hours I'm working. But actually, I work all the time.
Yeah,
I am at work all the time. When I'm on holiday, I'm at work.
And you might have a great idea on holiday, and then take yourself away for a couple of hours to journal.
Exactly.
And write things down about it, right? So you don't lose it.
But I think for this sounds silly, but for me, I try not to call what I do work.
Yeah.
I don't call it work anymore. I think it's just what I do. I've come to realize that this is just what I do. So for me, it's not been about I stop at 6 and then I start again at 9 the next day. It's been about working on my mindset and my mindfulness. So I hate the word mindful. I always feel it sounds a little bit kind of hippie-fied.
With me, it's a great word, and I don't think it's hippie, because mindfulness is so important. You know, I think like when you're with your kids, then if they understand it as they start to get older as well, oh, daddy's had an idea, he's just gone back in the office for 10 minutes because I understand he needs to get it down. But when you come back and you're kicking a ball around in the garden with them, you're not like scrolling on Instagram or responding to emails, you're kicking a ball in the garden with them. And
I think that's exactly the key. It's about attention. For me, it's been about learning to notice where my attention is. So the whole, I do meditation, and I think the whole meditation and mindfulness practice for me has been about learning to notice when my mind is not focused on where it should be,
and bringing it back.
So when I am focused on the business, I'm mindful that I'm focused on the business. When my son comes in and taps me on the shoulder and I'm writing an email, what I try and do is say to him, Shay, just give me 2 minutes. I'll come and talk to you about your drawing, and then I'll give you my complete attention, my complete focus.
You don't
and that's okay. Exactly.
I shut the door to my office, but it doesn't work. They just open the door.
No, exactly. They don't care, do they? But I think learning to focus and notice where your attention is so important, because it allows you to, it allows me anyway, to, if they want to do a drawing or they want to kick a ball around. A few years back, this sounds really silly, but I used to think, this is great. I can sit with my son and him be doing stuff and I can still be working. But after a few years of kind of feeling like, actually, I think I'm missing out on stuff here. That is not with my son. Sitting with my son is not, unless my attention is on my son, I'm not really with my children and my wife. So for me, it's been about practicing mindfulness and that attention. There's a really great book I'm reading at the moment called Peak Mind by, she's called Dr. Amishi. Oh, I've forgotten her name. That's terrible.
I'll find it.
Yeah. Reading a book called Peak Mind at the moment. And she talks about how there are 3 different types of attention. There's like a spotlight, there's a floodlight, and then she's got like a third version. And the analogy that she's drawing is that when there are times when you need to be laser focused on one thing. So that might be your son.
Yeah.
It might be, their drawing, that conversation with your wife, that email, that particular piece of work.
Yeah.
And then there's the floodlight, which is you might be talking to a client and thinking about the broader challenge of what it is that they're focusing on. And then there's the wider focus, which is what are your general goals and aspirations in life? And that's a really great way, I think, of thinking about your attention. And different times and different jobs, for me, require different levels of attention.
And through the week and through the day. That's really interesting. I think I need to do a lot on that. I was meditating consistently and it made a big difference. When I don't do it, like the last few weeks, I've been on holiday, so I haven't done it and got back into it now, just getting over jet lag. The focus starts coming back. But when you do meditate, I think it is much easier to focus. But one thing, I read a book, 10x is easier than 2x, which is really good. I'd recommend it. And it speaks about you cannot focus and have the spotlight 9 to 5 days a week. You need to have, they talk about having focus days and buffer days. So I experimented going to Canada for 3 weeks with Monday, Wednesday, Friday being focus days, where I'll try and get at least one block of 3 to 4 hours of just focusing on a project. Tuesday, Wednesday, then you're doing your buffer days where you might, so I manage my son's under-9 football team. There's admin each week with that. I might do that. I might go to the post office and send a few things around. So those kind of jobs, you don't try and fit a little bit of personal admin in every day unless it's urgent. You do that stuff on the buffer days. Clear all your emails, clear all your star stuff, just clean your slate, ready for the next focus day. I found that has worked really well. And really actually you probably get more done over the week than trying to do focus or trying to do spotlight, floodlight and big light, stadium light, let's call it, every day.
Definitely. I think it also really helps with the feeling of overwhelm. I see a lot of creatives.
That's my constant state.
I think that's how we live, isn't it? But
constant state of an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Overwhelm. Managing overwhelm. Yeah.
But I think that's, and that managing overwhelm is, if you don't manage it, it's in the word, isn't it? It becomes overwhelming and you can't do anything.
Why do you think that we still feel that? I was talking to my wife about this. We've got a business, turns over 2 mil plus, a nice house, we can go on holiday whenever we want, got money in the bank, we're making progress. Every month we sign clients, it's moving in the right direction. Yet I will still put these notional targets on myself and feel this feeling of overwhelm to hit those targets, even though I know I shouldn't. Like, why? What do you do to stop yourself from feeling overwhelmed and actually enjoy the process?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things for me. I've tried to change how I look at stress. I think for me, stress is something that can be a good thing if it's harnessed in the right way.
Yeah.
I think for me, there's a big difference between stress and anxiety. So for me, stress is when you are under pressure, you have to deliver on something and you are in a delivery mode or you're in a certain mindset.
Yeah.
Anxiety is a worry. So anxiety is about something in the future that you are ruminating on, or you're running around in your head that is a worry. And I think for me, there's been an important part in trying to separate when I'm feeling anxious about something and when I'm feeling stressed.
Okay.
So if I'm feeling anxious about something,
yeah,
I've tried to reframe that. So I'm anxious about something because my mind is telling me that I need to do something about it. So I suppose back in, caveman stages, you would have been anxious about a noise in the bush because it might be a lion that's about to eat you. Whereas now, obviously, that anxiety might be a meeting, that anxiety might be a presentation. So if I'm feeling anxious about something, I try and listen to why I'm anxious, because 9 times out of 10, it's almost my mind telling me I need to do something. So if it's a presentation, I need to prep better for that presentation. Or if it's a tricky conversation I'm going to have, I need to think about and give myself the space to be ready for that conversation.
So you'll give yourself time to sit, feel the feeling, and kind of work out where it's coming from.
Definitely.
And then just calmly do something about it.
Exactly. And I think calm, breathing has been, again, with the mindfulness, breathing has been a massive part of my management of stress and my feeling of overwhelm. I think going back to your question of being business owners, I think I personally very often feel overwhelmed, but a big part of managing that feeling of overwhelm is having coping mechanisms. So those coping mechanisms for me are in planning my day. You know, I'm quite an anxious person. I'm quite high energy. You know, so I feel that if I plan my day, I've not got all this stuff of I've got to do this, because I know it's planned in at a certain point in the week. Going back to what you were saying about blocking that time, that has been a massive part of alleviating my worries, because I haven't got you may have read the book, the chimp complex.
I
haven't got my chimp
again. Actually, I'm going to read it again.
I haven't got my chimp going mad in the back of my mind, going, you need to do this, and this, because it's planned in. Exactly.
How do you plan your time? Do you have a system versus a to-do list? So this is an interesting question. You've got client projects, you've got team members to keep track of, or just retain, keep happy, check how they're doing against their key performance indicators. You've got your kids, you've got your wife, you've got your own personal health goals. How do you sit down and plan the week so you've got the right balance of work around each of the areas?
That's a really good question. I don't think it's something I get right all the time, but I do have a process in the way I do it. I tend to get up when we're busy. I tend to get up, and I think I've heard you say the same, quite early. I'd rather get up at 6 o'clock, go downstairs and work for a couple of hours before the boys get up. I'm a very active. I'd like to think I'm a very active part of the family. I help the kids get for breakfast, I take them to school, I drop them off. And I really enjoy that. I think that's a real privilege. So I want to be present for when I'm doing that. But I find if I get up at 6 o'clock and work 6 till 8 before all the emails come in, before the kids get up, that's when I do my best thinking and my best planning. And that's when I plan in my week.
Okay.
What
and
I
shows you don't need this crazy hour-long yoga, meditation, stretching, jumping on a trampoline, jumping in an ice bath type thing.
No.
You just get up and you work.
And I like that.
Do you drink coffee?
I drink a lot of green tea.
Okay.
I don't drink coffee because I find that it makes me quite jittery. I drink a lot of matcha. So matcha gives me that same level of caffeine kick.
Well, I might try that.
I fear it doesn't give me the crash however many hours later. So I'm a bit of a green tea buff. I love my green tea. So then what I do during the week is there are times I'm very transparent with my diary with the team, because we work remotely. I think it's another way of me showing the team, I think, that I am around when they need, but there are times when I'm not around. There are times when I need to focus, and I generally will block book, like maybe I tend to do 90 minutes. There'll be a block book in my calendar that says work block, do not disturb. And the team will know that I won't answer to any Slacks. I won't answer to anything. And in that time, that's when I do my best creative work. And I tend to try and do that probably 3 times a week.
And you'll have a certain number of active projects and clients that you're choosing to work on because you still enjoy doing the work.
Exactly.
And then will you have little blocks in the week for checking in with the team? You've already got your workouts and your thing already laid in. You've got your family time already laid in.
That's it.
I have to put thinking time in the week. What are we going to do as a family on the weekend? These things to remind me to be part of that process. But mine is similar. I like to get up early, and I don't do work. But if I wake up at, say, 6, I'll come down, have a drink, walk the dog around the block, then sit down, plan my day, maybe get a few little things done. And I clear my notifications in the morning, which is the worst thing to do. But now I've got to a place where that's good for me, because then I can do my work blocks. Then I'll take the kids to school. My wife gets them ready. I don't get involved in the shouting and screaming of trying to get them ready on time. I just pick them up from the front door and take them to school, then go to the gym. And then I'll start my work day about 11 by the time I've got back from the gym and showered. But I know exactly what I'm going to do. So then I can work from 11 till 5, say, where if they've got after school activities and I need to pick them up 11 till 3, but I can get so much done. It's amazing, isn't it?
I find I'm calmer as well if I've done at least an hour before there are any emails, before anybody gets up, because I almost feel like I've got ahead of the day.
I guess you're still getting emails. I think the difference now with me is I can go and clear the notifications, but I know that there won't be emails from clients because I don't do any client work. Or there won't be, I probably get like 5 emails a day. But back at the point where I was doing client work and getting client emails, I definitely think that's good advice for people. There's a good chapter in 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss where he talks about blocking out emails into 3 batched email check times when you can stop, do it. So you wake up, do your focused work, then check your emails and do a bit of admin or whatever for half an hour, then do another block of focused work, then emails, then another block, and then sign off.
Yeah, I think that's great.
And that's what I've got my team doing now, because they would sit in their inbox and as soon as a client emailed them, they'd reply straight away, which creates this chain reaction. So if the client wants to discuss something really important, they can book at any time with their accountant a Zoom call. They've got a Calendly link to do that. If it's an email, they don't expect an instant response. So long as you acknowledge that email in one of the 3 or 2 slots for checking emails, if you can answer it, great. If you can't, at least acknowledge it and say, I've received it, but I need to do X, Y, and Z.
It's really interesting. I think that I was reading a book and it talks about this hive mind.
Yeah.
Which essentially, you know, when you have bigger teams and there's lots of chitter chatter going on, it's really, really hard to focus.
Yeah.
And I think there is especially with working remotely, there's lots of Slack messages, Teams messages, emails coming around, flying around. You have to set boundaries to give yourself that focus, because otherwise, like you say, that hive mind thinking will just consume your day.
And you don't get anything done. So do you take your lessons and coach your team? Here's what's worked for me and here's what I'd recommend.
Definitely. I think it's with the senior directors, obviously they have their processes. And
I don't get involved in Yasser, my business partner's
they do that. They do it.
Yeah, I know it works for him and it's different to me, but yeah.
That's it. But the more junior members of staff, I'd like to think that for me, we obviously do their PDPs, the personal development. I think they have half year and yearly reviews. But I think for me, their personal development, I would like to think kind of comes through the constant, trying to help them with little things, just tweak that, or change. I had a conversation with going back to, I mentioned Rosie earlier on recently, and she was saying how she's amazed just how she'll come to 8 o'clock and in the evening and she'll get loads and loads of work done.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, why is that? And she said, well, it's because I don't have all the pings and the notifications and I can focus on one thing. So I said to her, you just answered your own question there.
Yeah.
Pretend at 1 o'clock in the afternoon that it's 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
So turn all your notifications off just for 2 hours or 3 hours, whatever. As long as you tell us all that you are focusing on something, that time that you get 8 till 11, you can have that 1 till 4, but it's just about you learning to turn that off. But I think, and it's just a minor thing, she does it now and it's amazing. We know that she'll go off grid because she's focusing. And coming back to what we were saying earlier on, that is a trust thing. I trust that if I don't hear from her for a day, for half a day, I know that she is in work mode and that she's focused. She doesn't have to be responding to messages continually for me to feel that she's working.
Yeah.
So when you do work remotely, for me, it's been so important that everybody feels they are trusted so that they can actually create that time. If they don't feel trusted and they don't feel that they've got the authority to switch off from that hive communication for a certain period of time, they won't. And then they won't be productive.
Yeah, and that's the biggest lesson for people that are thinking about going remote or are running remote teams. Make sure that they have those blocks. Make sure that you talk to them about how they can work effectively, share what works for you. We have this system called RotaCloud, which allows people to put in a week in advance and have it approved when they want to work. So for example, if we had a creative and she said, look, I actually, with my kids and with everything that's going on, I'd rather have 4 hours in the afternoon to be with my kids in the summer holidays and whatever. And when they go to sleep at 8 o'clock, I'll work from 8 till 12. We'd say that's fine. Put it in RotaCloud, get it approved. And if that's, because sometimes creative people love to work at night and you work at night, so long as you're not client facing and that works for you and that works for us, then fine. We just want to know what your work slots are through the week.
And that's exactly it. I think finding how that individual chooses to work. For me, I genuinely, and I say this to all of our creatives, I genuinely don't care when you work. I think if you've got a brief, you know what needs delivering. You do it when you want.
It doesn't make a difference to you.
No, exactly. You know, and I think actually, like you say, some individuals prefer to work in the evening. Some prefer to work in the morning. Some have kids that they want to pick up and drop off.
Yeah.
I genuinely don't care when you do it, as long as if the work gets done and it's to the standard we've agreed.
And if they're not at their desk, you know where they are because they're using the statuses on Slack or...
Exactly.
We recently moved from Slack to Google just because we're paying for Google Suite anyway, so we may as well use Google Chat, which has worked fine. Slack is really good, but Google Chat's free, so happy days. Okay. We're definitely going to have to do a part 2 because there's loads of individual areas that I'd really like to dig into in a bit more detail. So this is more of an overview and then we'll get some feedback and then hopefully dig in a bit more.
Certainly.
I think we've kind of already answered this. So in terms of how I talk about a business has to do well, it has to attract clients, convert those clients and deliver to clients. So just a recap for people, and if I've missed anything, let me know. In terms of attracting clients at the start and now, you've built a big network. You put out good content, you create the case studies, you're creating authority and awareness in the marketplace. You're developing relationships online and face-to-face. You're bringing in clients, but then you're making sure that you attract new work from existing clients by having conversations with them. You do PR, you do press, you do some outbound.
Yeah. That's correct. Yeah.
About it?
Definitely.
Yeah. So in terms of converting clients, your method of converting clients, because you work with bigger clients, is usually face-to-face, either pitches, paid pitches, or I guess that's it, right? Pitches or paid pitches.
But if it's a new client, someone we've not worked with before, then usually it will come from an introduction, or it might be an RFP, where, like you say, where we pitch and we win it.
Yeah. And is any of that online, or is most of it you go there and you meet them in person?
Yeah, no, it's usually face to face.
Yeah. Okay.
I think during the COVID years, obviously, there was challenges of having, and we did do a couple of big presentations online, which I hate, because you just
want to look someone in the face and gauge their reaction.
I want to see if they're feeling what I'm feeling for the creative.
Yeah, and the value is worth it. Like, I wouldn't necessarily go and see a client. We do all of our conversion on Zoom, because the client might be £1,000 a month, but you might be talking about a big project for a big brand that's worth 50 or 100K, and you need to go and see someone face to face to do that, right?
Definitely.
Ideally. And presumably your clients are all over the UK. They're not Midlands based. You've got clients in London, Manchester, right?
We've got clients in Dubai. We've got clients in London.
Oh, okay. We're just opening an office in Dubai this week.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll have to talk about that separately. So you can take on clients anywhere
internationally. I think that's been one of the directors, Gareth, who joined us recently. He lived and worked in Dubai for about 10 years. I'd actually worked with him previously in the previous agency. We kind of crossed paths, and the journey for us coming together was interesting. So when I was freelancing, he was running the agency in Dubai and I freelanced for him. He then moved back to the UK, and I said to him, look, I'm looking for some consultancy help, business consultancy help on growing the business. Can you come and help me? So then we worked together that way. And then he kind of says to me, look, I love the business model. I love where you're going with the business. Can we work together? So we joined the Kingel team.
So it is like a collective. I think what's very unique about it, and how you've managed to break through the freelancer to business owner barrier, is instead of you trying to be this king sat at the top table employing people in a triangular structure underneath you, you've said, okay, well, my zone of genius is this. I need to create this board or collective of other senior people that I bring on and give them part of the business and share in the profits of the business.
Exactly.
So you've got each area covered, which if you look at a big business, they'd have a head of marketing and sales, or a head of marketing and a head of sales, head of client delivery, head of creative, and you bring these higher level people in. So it's not just your responsibility. When you hire a new designer, you've got other people that can take responsibility for overseeing and managing the team as well. And
I think actually for me, that came from the, obviously there's 8 of us now, we're all full time in the business.
Yeah.
But that mindset of when you manage a freelance collective, because I'm not employing these individuals that I'm working with, I have no official authority over them.
Yeah.
So I had to learn to manage and work with people that ultimately nobody's higher than anybody else. So the way you've articulated that, I don't see myself at the top of the business and everybody's below me. I think quite the opposite. I almost see it as a linear approach. Everybody has their specialism. Everybody does what they want to be doing and has their skill set, but we're working together to do the best work we can. And I think that's why for me, we're turning over plus of £1 million now. We're doing well. I think I don't have the vision of wanting to create a 50, 100 man team. Yeah. I think actually this maybe up to 12 people would be a nice size. Yeah. But it's never really be about me barking orders or me kind of saying, I'm the big wig, you do as I say. No. This is the brief from the client. How do we as a team do that rule on one side? I've experienced in the past us and them mindsets as well within teams. And I think that for me is just the opposite of what any business needs to have. Ultimately, if one team member has a problem, we all have that problem, and we're all together to solve it.
And if you look at not another industry, but another zone altogether, look at football. If someone interviewed Pep Guardiola this week, and his answer to the question, I can't remember what the question was, but no one is beneath me, no one is above me. We're all on the same level. We all work together for the common goal. I don't treat anyone differently, whether they're the coach who lays out the cones, who's a junior, or whether they're my assistant who's taking the sessions on a day-to-day basis. He treats everyone the same. And that culture that he's created is why they're so successful. It's not, obviously he's a tactical genius as well, but if he was a tactical genius with an authoritative approach, they wouldn't be where they are. No. Everyone is bought into it. So everyone can make decisions. So people also, as an owner, one of the biggest blocks is everyone keeps coming to you to make all the decisions. Whereas really you want people to have the authority to make their own decisions up to a certain point within limits. Okay, and then delivery, how do you deliver massive value to your clients? I think you've already answered that as well. To me, it comes across that you really try and understand the product, you build long-term relationships, you get passionate about the business and the product, and you understand it and do whatever it takes, I guess. Probably overworking a lot at the start, which is fine because you really want to get under the skin of the business.
Yeah, I think quality for me is a really key part of what we do. There are some businesses there have been a few businesses that haven't gone forward with us because our pricing is too high. Yeah. But the reason that we are, say, a little more expensive is because of those extra hours and that quality and the quality of the team as well. Yeah. So I would like to think that a big part of that delivery is almost that obsession for it to be the best it can really be. And, when the client, I suppose, buys our services, my name, because we're not a massive team, and this goes back to the comparison of a huge agency versus a smaller agency, I am completely vested in that project doing well. Yeah. The directors in the business are vested. Their name is on that job. So if that job doesn't go well, it's down to, their name is on it. So there's a level of pride and there's a level of commitment that you live and breathe it. So when there is a problem for me in the business, as I say, nobody's perfect. I think we take pride on ourselves in that we will be open and want to kind of talk about it.
Yeah. Okay. So what are your goals for the future?
One of my major goals, I think, for the next 12 years, for the next 12 months is...
I was going to say that's a specific long-term goal.
yeah, that's it. I know exactly where I'm going to be in 12 years. No, I think that the next 12 months, I think for us is about continuing to build the pipeline. Yeah. I think is about continuing to grow the business by, say, 10%. Yeah. I think for me, I want to grow the team. I think, as I say, we're at 8 at the moment. I'd like to get to maybe 9, 10 people. For me, it's about sustainable growth.
I was just about to say that. Yeah.
It's not, we're not in a position where I want to be a steep growth curve. It's about making sure that we can add value to our existing clients. Yeah. We maybe take on another, additional client. But it's, again, for me, it's really important that it's not about pitch. It's about finding the right opportunity that we fit well with. Yeah. And just continuing to grow. So again, for me, it just comes back to that balance, making sure that we grow, we work hard, but we keep a good balance and that everybody in the business stays healthy and that the business itself keeps growing and stays healthy.
Yeah, and what I love about that is one of the most successful mentors that I've ever spoken to. He runs an accountancy firm in Australia. They grew from, I think, 1 million to 20 million in sales over 5 years, something like that. Fastest growing accountancy firm in Australia. His advice to me when I said, look, how are you growing? How are you getting clients? Was, I won't do an Australian accent. Listen, mate, just focus on your clients and focus on your people. When you've got key people, give them an ownership stake so they don't go anywhere. Make sure they're happy. And if you focus on your clients and make sure you're doing an amazing job, they will recommend you to every person they come into contact with because they'll become raving fans and you won't have to do any marketing. And you'll retain your people and you'll retain your clients. And I didn't really listen to that. This is 5-6 years ago. I thought, no, it's okay. Look, as long as we're doing what the client signed up for and that is enough, that's fine. Why would I spend extra time really spending time with that client, understanding what else they need? Are they happy? Getting feedback, all of that stuff. Because my time could be spent elsewhere, setting up a Facebook ad or going to a networking meeting or whatever it might be. But he was spot on. And I think it's so smart that you have that approach as well. Because like for people listening, if you're not doing that and you're not focusing on your people and your clients above new clients, there's 2 ways to run a business, right? One, like a mentor of mine that said, listen, mate, you shouldn't care if people leave because if you've got a really good lead flow pipeline, they'll all be replaced. Or make your clients really, really happy and grow through referrals and organically primarily. One is gonna, if you genuinely care about your clients, upset you. Like I get physically upset if a client leaves, which touch wood doesn't happen very often. And the other one is for someone who's really, really focused on sales and money and doesn't really care about what they're doing. They've just started their business primarily to make money.
And I think that's a big difference. I think if you're in it just for the money, like you say, the decisions are different. So if you're in it because you care. I think I have a mentor. So my mentor actually was the first person that employed me out of university. So a guy called Phil. He ran an agency. It was my first art direction job out of university. He grew that business. I think when I joined them there, I think they were probably about 25. He grew that up to 100 plus and then sold it.
So that's got to be one of your keys to success, which I'm going to ask you in a minute for your 3 keys. Is everyone I speak to that's got their shit together and is growing a good business has a mentor.
Oh, he's brilliant.
To guide you, and when you're stuck, someone to go to.
I might spend an hour and a half on a call with him. And I come away exhausted because of the amount of insight. It's amazing. It's almost like I've just downloaded 10 years of experience.
Right? He's been there and done it, and you're stuck and you go there. And sometimes I can have a 15-minute call with my mentor. He's a friend of mine. And I don't need one at the moment because I'm still actioning the stuff that we covered in the last 15-minute call. But in 15 minutes, he's given me answers to my problems and I'm totally unstuck. And then he's given me another 3 months worth of work to crack on with.
And I think he's just so calm. He's dealt with everything.
Yeah.
And I base a lot of, and I said this to him before, I base a lot of my business decisions on what I experienced in his business. The way he treated his staff, the way him and his wife actually, how they treated. I mean, I was quite ill when I worked there. I was off for 3 months, and they paid me full salary. They were really, really good to me. I was very junior. They really grew me. They supported me. The way they treated their staff with kind of their personal development. They invested very much in their staff and their clients. He was always at the forefront of those relationships. And he cared. He really cared. And every time I speak to him, he almost implants this, these decades of experience into my mind that because I think he's been there. It's just amazing.
I put a reel out yesterday, which probably wound a few people up, but just basically said, be really careful about who you take advice from.
I agree with you completely.
Because they need to have either proven that they've done it with their clients, their advice delivered. If you're going to them for advice in order to grow your business and be a better business, I'm not talking about, a leadership coach who's specifically going to come in and teach you a framework to develop KPIs for your team, has to make more money than you. But if you go to a coach or a mentor and you want them to help you grow your business, they should have either done it themselves or be able to prove that they've done it with clients.
I agree. I think you can have a theory-based coach, but unless you've really faced those problems, it's hard to give.
It's not the same.
advice.
They're just teaching you a framework, which you could ultimately, in my belief, get from reading the book that they read.
Yeah.
Right. What are your 3 keys to success? So this is, it could be across different times. So if you're a freelancer and you're looking to move into scale, if you're employing people, and sort of where you're at now. One of them for me, don't let me give you one of your 3 keys, but it's got to be having a mentor to guide you along the way, isn't it?
I think there's probably, there's 2 or 3 things. I think learning has been a massive part.
So your own self-development.
For me, I think finding ways to learn and giving yourself the space to learn is so important. One of the questions I always ask anybody I'm interviewing is, how do you focus on your own self-development?
Yeah.
Because I think for me, how they answer that shows how passionate they are about the industry they're in.
Yeah, I'm smiling because I interviewed someone this week and I asked that same question. They didn't understand the question.
Right.
And then when I asked them again, they said, well, I love to read fiction. And I'm like, that's not the answer I'm looking for.
No.
Right? Because if you love numbers and accounting, you would listen to economics podcasts, you'd read the Harvard Business Review, you'd be interested in business, right?
Exactly. And I think it's about finding ways you learn. So I'm quite dyslexic. I've always struggled with dyslexia. I had tuition all the way through university. I think my email responses are terrible. It takes me ages to write emails. But I think I still read. It takes me a lot longer to read things, but I listen to a lot of audiobooks. So I will read and I'll listen to the audiobook. So I might digest a book at the same speed as somebody who's used to, who has normal ability of reading.
Yeah.
But I find ways to learn.
Yeah.
And I think that the mentorship is a big part of that learning for me.
Yeah.
I think having somebody that you can talk to and trust, that you can be completely transparent with, and has no agenda and has only your interests at heart.
Yeah.
That's where I think the best mentorship comes.
It gives you accountability as well. Right?
Yeah.
And people are arrogant sometimes. They start a business and like with you, you'd be great as a creative, but you don't necessarily have any skills in running a business.
No.
So you have to learn.
Oh God, I think that's we haven't touched on that, but I think that's the whole podcast in itself, in the jumping from doing your craft to running a business that sells your craft is a huge leap.
Yeah.
And I think one that for me was a massive, massive learning curve. And maybe we can come back to another time, but my wife's
I've just written down part 2. Craft to CEO.
Yeah, that's it. I think, my wife's input in that journey has been a big part of, I believe, the success. I think she works now for herself. She's a consultant. She works with the NHS. She's very used to managing budgets.
Yeah.
So what she did with me, I think I mentioned it earlier on, is she would help me look at the snapshot of the year and go, what the hell? What the hell are you doing?
Just starting to understand your finances.
Yeah.
And there'll be these key skills like financial intelligence, strategic planning,
cash
hiring,
flow,
leadership and management. Yeah.
100%.
So there'll be these areas that you need to master to run a business. Tony Robbins has this 7 forces of business mastery. That's a framework, but there'll be others. You can read a book called Scaling Up. You can read EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System, all these other things. They break a business down into these different areas. And then as an owner, I think it's your responsibility to rank yourself out of 10 in terms of how competent are you in those areas. Like, do you understand how to be a good leader and manager? No. Give yourself a 2. Okay, what learning are you going to do to get from a 2 to a 4 this year? Do you understand profit and loss, balance sheet, cash flow? No. Don't just give that to your accountant. Say, how am I going to learn that? Because you need, as a leader, you don't need to be all 10, but I believe that all these, so say there's 7 areas of a business, you need them all to be 5s or 6s or 7s. You need them to be consistent, because if you want a business to move forward, it's kind of like spokes on a wheel. If you've got 2s, 7s, 9s, 1s, it's going to be a very bumpy ride, and you're going to have big problems in certain areas. I think a business will be more successful if they're all 6s than if you've got 3 9s and 3 1s and a couple of 2s.
Definitely. And I'm not a tax specialist, but I kind of understand, like you were talking about with the car, and I understand how to use the money to work the hardest. But a big part of that again has been in my wife, because she's so good with money, helping me with that. But I think back to what you're saying about the profit and loss, I understand how to look at a profit and loss report now. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, when I started the business, I did not have a clue.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean you have to do it on your own.
No.
But so long as you can then have an informed discussion with your accountant or with your wife or with your mentor while looking at the profit and loss, just get yourself to a certain point of competency. Well, I'm not saying spend all your time out of your genius zone, but just be competent in the other areas. Or you have to hire someone as a managing director to run your business for you. If all you want to do is stay in your genius zone and create, you have to bring someone in to run the business.
And that was never
you've got
my
a choice to make, right?
Yeah, I always want. I suppose I get a kick out of the efficiency of the entire business,
and learning about it.
And learning. I love that. I find it
how
so
to
interesting.
Be a good managing director.
Yeah, exactly. And learning how to manage people. Learning, I can do the creative product. That's where I cut my teeth.
Yeah.
But I find all the other areas of business and other people's businesses fascinating.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Humans want to learn and develop, and if you're not doing that and not making progress, you don't feel happiness, fulfillment, and joy.
Definitely.
Okay, so the one key is learning through mentors or through your own learning. What are your other two keys to success?
I think the second one would probably be investing in your own health. For me, that has been a massive part of my growth and the business's growth. I think if you're not focused on your health, it's something I say, if you haven't got your health, you haven't got anything.
Yeah.
There's no point in having a huge business if you don't have your health. So for me, it's been about learning to find coping mechanisms to deal with stress and deal with pressure and deal with the whirl in your head as an entrepreneur. I think I see it a lot with junior creatives as well, or people coming into the industry. They might be able to do the design and do the creative, but they're not able and they don't have the coping mechanisms to deal with when the pressure's on and the stress is on. You've still then got to do your craft with all of this stuff on top.
Yeah.
You have
and I
to
see
find...
that a lot. We've had accountants come in, and you've probably had creatives come in who have left because they just can't deal with it. They can't deal with having, say, 50 clients and things coming at them from everywhere, and a system to put them into compartments and priorities and deal with them. So it's health, mental well-being, which we could do a part 3 on, but also imparting your learnings on your team, right? What's number 3?
Number 3 for me has been in the money side of things.
Getting on top of your finances.
You can't have a healthy business based purely on being a creative individual. You have to know how to financially put that in a healthy situation. So you have to know how to quote the job. You have to know how to make sure there are margins on the job. You have to know how that time is being allocated, what the costs are on that job. For a successful business, the product is half of it. The financial is the other half of it. And I think if you've got brilliant financials but no product, you're not going to potentially do that well. If you've got a brilliant product and no grasp on the financials, you're not really going to go anywhere. You've got to have that experience.
Right? And you can't make decisions. And at some point, something will come down the road that you haven't seen because you're not looking at your finances in the right way, and that will end your business.
Definitely. And I think ultimately, at the end of the day, if you don't have the right finances in place, you can be as good as you want as a designer. You're not going to be able to pay your team. You're not going to be able to do anything. It is probably the biggest learning for me that I've taken from building the agency.
I love that. Yeah. And that's why, people who know prioritize understanding finances and accounting. You can go to Business Mastery, which is on right now. It's a Tony Robbins event, 5-day event, £20,000 it is to go in person. And 2 days out of the 5 days are on accounting.
Wow.
There's a guy called Keith Cunningham who's much more engaging than me, and I think I'm a pretty good speaker, but people love the way he speaks about numbers, and they get to the point after the event where they even love him more than Tony because he's so passionate about numbers and he presents it in such a way, and they come away thinking, do you know what, this is the one thing that I didn't know that I needed to know, That's so important. Everything I do in our business and with clients is looking at the existing finances, looking at the historic numbers, creating a financial plan together, and then based on the actual performance of the business against the plan, adjusting the strategy if it needs to, like literally going through every line on the profit and loss and the cash flow and saying, well, that was good, that was not so good, that was bad, and making adjustments to the strategy based on the actual numbers. Otherwise, I just don't understand how you can make decisions. Same thing as like having a strategic plan and having focus. What we do is work in 90-day sprints where we have 3 key projects to work on the business to drive it forward. And then we don't allow work on anything else like internal projects until those are done. Otherwise, you end up with 10 to 15 sort of spinning plates that you do a little bit of everything here, there. And look, at the end of the year, you haven't completed anything. Whereas with our system, you get 12 key projects done, which really drives the business forward. Yeah, I think it's super important. And, you know, being in business I stole this from someone, I can't remember who, but might have been Tony Robbins. Being in business is like being a gladiator because, although this is a negative thing, so I don't want to end it on this, 50% of businesses will fail in the first year. Over 10 years, 96% of businesses fail. So every year you're in business, you're more likely to die. Like the longer you spend in the ring as a gladiator, the more likely you are to die. That's why there's a time limit. Just survive for a certain period of time and then we'll let you out because eventually you'll die. But the limitation of risk really, to me, is getting on top of your finances. Like if we look at the last 12 years, the failure rate of businesses that are growth factor clients is something like 0.05%. We've literally had 1 or 2 businesses fail in 12 years.
Wow.
And the market is 96%. So it doesn't have to be, you have to be a growth factor client, but you just have to get on top of your numbers.
Definitely, yeah. And I think for me, I knew nothing about that. So I had to school myself, ask questions, sit with the accountant, you know, make mistakes, work things out. But by doing that, I am able to make better long-term decisions, ultimately for the health of the business and for the people in the business.
Yeah. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you wanted to cover?
I mean, there's lots of stuff that we could probably dig into.
Yeah, no, I definitely think we need a part 2 and a part 3, but the 3 keys to success, I think, are incredible for anyone. There's the real critical piece for this, for me, is your insight in how to break through from freelancer to actually having a team and looking at it from a senior recruitment perspective of equals versus trying to pull people underneath you and create a structure like most people just try and replicate the structure of the agency that they came from.
And I don't think you can ever do that because I think ultimately, you know, if you've come from a business that's 30, 50, 100 people, when you're a 1-2 man band, you have to just work it out yourself. You have to make the mistakes. You know, there's the quote, I think it was Paul Arden that said it was, you know, fail again, fail better. You know, every time you fail, you learn something from it. Yeah. And that's a great motto. I think for me also, this sounds really silly, but not taking things too seriously. You know, I think by looking, I've traveled a lot. So I've spent time in Africa, I've spent time in China, you know, seeing how people live in different cultures and spending time in developing countries makes me realize that actually I've got so much as it is, you know, and I think ultimately everybody has their challenges, everybody has their anxieties, their stresses, their worries. You just have to be decent with everybody you can. I think not being so wound up or taking things too seriously, I think people respond well to that because you're relaxed more and I deal with things better if I'm relaxed and I'm breathing. Yeah,
and if you're coming from a place of gratitude,
definitely
your decisions in business will be totally different versus coming from a position of need.
And an expectation as well. I think there is a certain expectation that I put on, you know, the team members in delivery, but equally there is also, I have to tailor my expectations that they are different people to me. They think differently to me. And I have to check myself with, okay, well, they've not done this. This is how I would do it, but they're not me, you know, and I think they don't think like me. They think differently. And I think having that openness and that mindfulness of everybody's different. I have no control ultimately over the people I work with. Yeah. I don't want to control them. I want them to feel that they are in control, but that they have the space, the authority and the skill set to take control. And I think when you let people have that control for themselves, I believe that's where they flourish and that's where they grow. It's a challenge with junior staff because ultimately they learn best, I think, from exposure to pressure and challenges and giving them advice.
Yeah.
But
constant and regular feedback.
Exactly. Well. But I still believe that by giving them as much control as you can,
yeah,
that's where people flourish and grow.
Yeah. And I think that is, from all of what we've spoken about, a key difference between you and your agency and why you've been so successful. So thank you for coming and sharing some of your founder story with me.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
It's been awesome.
Me.
We definitely need to do a part 2 and a part 3.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it.
Thanks, guys, for listening or watching if you're on the YouTube. That's been another episode of Founder Stories, and I'll see you in the next one.